A preview of the book of Micah, Who is Like Yah? Chapter 2. The pre-exilic minor prophets included: in Israel, capital Samaria, in the northern kingdom, there was Amos for about 50 years who foretold restoration, and Hosea for about 38 years foretelling Yahweh's faithfulness. And in Judah, capital Jerusalem, the southern kingdom, there was Micah for about 36 years foretelling prosperity, and Zephaniah for about 49 years foretelling restoration. What were the social sins in Israel and Judah that Micah condemned? These included the seizure of farmland and homes, the violation of inheritance laws, a haughty attitude, suppressing prophetic speech, seizing men's clothing, depriving women and children of their home, telling wind and lies, and promoting alcoholism. Now, these verses are written in poetic parallelism. The major kinds include numerical. You tell a number and then raise it. For example, 6 things he hates, yea, 7 he detests. Synonymous parallelism when you restate a same idea. Give ear to my lament, hear my complaint. Antithetic, you state a contrast. The wicked lie, the righteous tell the truth. And progressive, when you build upon the first line, like a tree planted by a stream of water. In Micah 2, verse 1, we read, from the Lexham English Bible, "Woe to those who plan wickedness and evil deeds upon their beds. In the light of the morning they did it, because they have power in their hands." The term power here is El, a name of God, implying legal ways in which to obtain wealth at others' loss. Now, a word about divine judgment introduced by the term woe. In Scripture, we learn that God discriminates between right and wrong. He does so by the criteria of his revealed laws, pronouncing verdicts of weal or woe. God searches men's motives and weighs their actions. He avenges wrong and rewards good, forgiving the repentant. In Micah chapter 2, verse 2, they covet fields and seize them, and houses and take them away. They oppress a man and his house, a man and his inheritance. One's inheritance was protected by divine law. Debt must be canceled every 7 years, and property must be returned to owners or their heirs every 50 years. Regarding the confiscation of property, there are several kinds. Where you have royalty, it is a royal or divine privilege. Under communism, it is for purposes of state ownership, which devolves into party ownership. Under socialism, this guarantees government administration. In republics, you have the practice of eminent domain, whereby the state confiscates private property. Under democracy, it is the right of investors to confiscate any property offered as guarantee on loans. Under globalism, it is an official prerogative, and when a society collapses, this is done by gang violence. Regarding banal evil in American society, that is, when evil is considered normal. For example, the pervasive traffic in narcotics, health-destroying food products, debt slavery by excessive usury, think of credit cards, pornography and sexual perversion, homosexuality and transgenderism, abortion, warfare and weapons, financialized land and rental properties, denying most of the population an affordable place to live, lawfare and excessive imprisonment. Micah chapter 2, verse 3. Therefore, thus says Yahweh, Look, I am planning disaster against this family, from which you will not be able to remove your necks. You will not walk proudly, for it is a time of disaster. The term family here is synonymous with the nation. These are sinning Israelites, Judeans, descended from Israel. Their necks would be bound together with ropes during their deportation into exile. It is important to identify the individuals and groups mentioned in Micah chapter 2. These include Yahweh, a king, Micah himself, the wicked, a certain preacher, the people or family or Jacob, the assembly of Israel, men, women, children, an apostate, and the remnant. Micah 2:4. In that day they will raise a proverb against you, and will wail a bitter wailing, saying, We are utterly ruined. He exchanges the portion of my people. How he removes it from me. He apportions our field to an apostate. Now the singular field is a collective noun including land, orchards, and herds. The apostate is anyone who serves other gods than Yahweh. This could be a reference to Sennacherib, emperor of the Neo-Assyrian Empire, who attacked Jerusalem in the year 701 BC, to whom Hezekiah paid tribute. Or possibly to Nebuchadnezzar II, who reigned from 605 to 562 BC, emperor of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, who sieged Jerusalem during the years 587 through 86. It was he who destroyed the Jerusalem temple. Now, there are actually 15 levels of authority that we learn from Scripture, several of which appear in this book. At the very top level, there is Yahweh himself, who accomplishes his eternal purposes, primarily through King Messiah, an end-time ruler. Then we have the holy angels who do God's will, and beneath them the devil, the so-called God of this world. He has authority over spiritual rulers and powers who disseminate false ideas, and then the elite cabals and networks who have their agendas, many operating internationally, and then global financiers who know how to confiscate and appropriate wealth. And then in the visible realm, We have imperial powers, those who dictate to many nations, military forces who impose authority, parliaments who legislate, often who approve imperial or military legislation, then elected officials who execute the will of the authorities over them, and bureaucracies who enforce their policies, courts who prosecute offenders, police who capture suspects, and then the various media who disseminate propaganda and censure unwanted messages. Chapter 2, verse 5. Therefore you will have no one casting a line by lot in the assembly of Yahweh. Verse 6. Do not preach, they are preaching. They should not preach to these, for disgrace will not overtake us. A message of the false prophets. The reference here to casting a line by lot means the setting of property lines by casting lots, and the assembly, which the Greek Bible translated by ecclesia, adopted by the New Testament for church. Here it means Israel or Judah. Well, what about Yahweh's assembly? Well, he had an assembly in Eden, which included himself, various spirit beings, and human beings. Later, his assembly would be the nation of Israel in its various tribes whilst on their land. In the New Testament, Yahweh's assembly is the church, that is, Messiah dwelling amongst believers, locally, regionally, worldwide, and universally. A future assembly will be the Messianic kingdom when Christ rules on earth. And then the final or restored Eden, God, Messiah, and the redeemed in the new heavens and the new earth. Verse 7. Should this be said, O house of Jacob? Is the patience of Yahweh shortened? Are these his deeds? Are my words not pleasing to him who walks upright? The first half of the verse seems to be words of false prophets, and the second half those of Micah. So the reference to Jacob here could be the northern kingdom of Israel, or even the population of Judah. When he asks, are my words not pleasing, we have here a rhetorical question expecting a reply of, well, yes. Verse 8. But recently my people have risen up as an enemy. From before the cloak you strip off the robe from those passing by in confidence, returning from war. To strip off means robbing fellow citizens, and the phrase returning from war could be translated with no thought about war or conflict, that is, living at peace. Micah 2, verse 9. You have driven out the women of my people from the houses of their pleasure, that is, the homes in which they delight. From their children you have taken away my glory forever. This is a rebuke from Yahweh, who wants all children to live, to know him, and to receive their inheritance. Verse 10. Arise and go, for this is no resting place, on account of uncleanness that destroys with painful destruction. Resting means Israel is no longer a safe place to live and rear a family. So get out if you can. Uncleanness in Scripture often is a reference to idolatry and its immoral practices. Verse 11. If a man walks about in a spirit of deception and lies, saying, I will preach to you of wine and strong drink, then he would be a preacher for this people. Remember, alcohol kills neurons, your brain, destroys family, crashes cars, and hastens death. Verse 12, a word of hope. I will surely gather all of you, O Jacob. I will surely gather together the remainder of Israel. I will set them like sheep of Bozrah. As a herd in the midst of their pasture, they will be in tumult from people. Bozrah Edom was known for its vast sheep herds, which can prove very noisy. In other words, many will return from captivity. Tumult, then, refers to future shouts of thanksgiving and rejoicing. The ancient Ishtar Gate to the city of Babylon has been reconstructed and is on display in Germany. Verse 13, the one who breaks out before them goes up. They break through and pass the gate, going out through it. Their king passes before them, Yahweh at their head. Who will break out of captivity? It will be Israelites leaving out through the Ishtar Gate on their way back to their own land. Yahweh, their king, leading them.